Welcome, everybody. Welcome to CyberKriya, the home of enterprise cybersecurity wisdom, one podcast at a time. In CyberKriya, we try to do a no fluff podcast and interviews with global experts and leaders and practitioners on cybersecurity world, especially on the ERP and SAP world. So today, I have privilege to host somebody whom I call, and I think we all should call him the godfather of cybersecurity for SAP, if I'm not wrong. So,
That's
and
a
he
big
has been
title.
like, yeah, so I think it's not surprise. I know he's very humble. I think one of the humble leader I have met, and with lovely smile. So help me to introduce Mr. Mariano Nunez, right? Who's co-founder and CEO of Onapsis, and somebody who started the term which I use on LinkedIn all the time, the SAP Cybersecurity. So Mariano, welcome to CyberKriya.
Thank you very much, Gaurav. It's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
No, Mariano, I was talking like we try to make it more personal story. The things probably we see a lot of things on LinkedIn and update and the great work you have been doing as a leader and as a company. But we want to also touch some of the backstory which not everybody would know. So I want to go back to 2007 and the why. I always say the why, right? So what happened in 2007, Mariano? Maybe you introduce yourself first. Maybe talk about it, who you are. You want to do that, or maybe then we go to the 2007.
Yeah, I'm just happy to. So Mariano Nunez, born and raised in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, and I moved. I've been living here in Boston, in the U.S., for the last almost 13 years now. Background is kind of computer science engineer. Kind of grew up like kind of loving computers, but really kind of fell in love with cybersecurity kind of pretty young when I was 12. And kind of fell in love with the cybersecurity space at that point, and then got into like I would say by accident. I'm sure we're going to talk a bit about that. Kind of run across ERP business applications like SAP, working there, and then in 2009 founded Onapsis with my co-founders Victor Montero and JP. So yeah, it's been a quite a journey to be here. And again, pleasure talking with you, Gaurav.
Thank you, Mariano. I did host JP on my earlier episode of CyberKriya, and I did request him maybe we all should do like one full, like the original OGs,
Yeah.
you and JP and Victor, if we can. I know it will be hard, but that would be my dream for sure.
JP is the smart one. So if you go JP, you're already all set. You're good.
Okay, so maybe we'll try to combine both and maybe add Victor somehow, do some magic trick. Okay, so that's good to know, Mariano. So I think as I was saying, I wanna you to take us back to 2007,
Yeah.
that black hat, and maybe the why. Like what happened?
Yeah. Look, I started working when I was 18 in a cybersecurity consulting firm in Argentina. And basically I was doing offensive security. So I was doing penetration testing, ethical hacking. I was basically hacking into our customer systems so we could find the holes before the real bad guys would find them, right? And would help them close those vulnerabilities and threats. So for me, that was kind of dream job. I always loved that kind of side of the house. And basically in one of those engagements, I had to go in and test. It was a big healthcare company that ran SAP. So my boss comes to me at that time and tells me, "Hey, like we need to do a pen test on this customer. By the way, they're running SAP, right?" And I'm like, "Cut." It's a bit how to say, embarrassing to admit I did have no idea what SAP was. But I figure it's another application stack. I will go in and with the team go in and try to figure out what we could do. So I guess the surprise was that very quickly we started finding vulnerabilities in the application. And I think that aha moment was that we realized it wasn't the custom code, was really the underlying platform, right? Which was then later was called NetWeaver, which basically meant that anyone running those SAP versions at that point in time were exposed to that, were basically zero-day vulnerabilities, right? But of course, it was very hard to get access to SAP systems. So we were able to have another customer let us play with the development system for a couple of days. And same thing, we came back with like 14 0 days. I think it was on a component called IGS that is deprecated now. But I think the first aha moment was that I looked online at a place called Security Focus at the time, and you could see all the vulnerabilities by vendor. Everyone was focused on Oracle databases, Cisco routers, Microsoft, kind of Windows. There were very few. I think when I checked, there were 3 issues listed on SAP, right? And then I started getting smart about SAP. I took a basis training, and I started realizing that this thing ran the planet, right? And like the most critical data, the most critical processes. So I was very surprised I was kind of the only person who seemed to be thinking about this from a hacker perspective. Again, everyone was doing roles and authorizations. There was like, it's not that SAP security didn't exist. It was just something else. It was who has access to what. Let's make sure that stays that way. I was approaching it from okay, how would someone, even without a user and password, be able to get full control of the systems? So eventually I decided to invest a lot of time and go deep into RFC and kind of the RFC protocols, the RFC libraries, the gateways, those components, because I realized it was kind of basically a key component of how SAP systems run and interface. And that's why I ended up doing a big research on, and I submitted to speak at Black Hat in 2007. That was the conference in Europe, in Amsterdam. I was very happy that it was accepted. For me, it was just a dream to go to Black Hat as an attendee. And then I was there, like, for my first Black Hat as a kid from Argentina, speaking on the stage. So yeah, that was like, and that was kind of, I think, the first time there was a presentation on SAP cyber attacks, right? Not SAP security, but SAP cybersecurity and this type of threats. So it was a great experience. And yeah, I think it was kind of the first moment where everything started kind of snowballing from there, right?
So how old you were when you did that? Like
Yeah, I was
18, 20?
21.
I'm not trying to age you, but 21.
Yeah, 21, I believe at the time. 21, 22, yeah.
I don't know what I was doing at the time, so I have to go back. So you did a black hat presentation about RFC vulnerability. I think I was trying to search and I did find those PPTs as well. And I think I was doing maybe I was a basis guy at that time and I was doing some security and I don't think we even had GRC. It was still pretty limited user or
Right.
RPN and those R2 word, right? So then how did this whole conference or Black Hat became something like Onapsis? So maybe just wanna cover that part too, or
Yeah, like at that point, look, I was doing this as a researcher. So I just felt that I stumbled into a huge problem. But I was approaching this as a practitioner, as a researcher, trying to raise awareness. And by the way, this was not just an SAP issue. Like we also did research on Oracle, the Edwards Oracle e-business suite at the time, and we find same type of issues. We're just at the time there were systems that were not designed with this threat model in mind. So all these ERP business critical applications, again, SAP and Oracle, they had this type of issues. So it started really clicking on me that this was kind of an industry problem, not a one vendor problem. And when you think about the industry, again, these systems run the most critical data and processes. And I just found this paradox of this irony where I could see all the security industry focus on the endpoint, on the networks, on different type of controls, but the most critical applications they had, they were kind of widely exposed, right? So that started kind of, and I think that started kind of turning kind of the wheels on me and my kind of JP and Victor. Then we released something called Sapito, that was the first SAP penetration testing framework, like open source. And we started getting pull from people. They were inviting us to speak at more conferences, more Black Hats, more RSAs, or SAP events. We would go to SAP in Waldorf to basically share our findings with the SAP teams. And it just kind of dawned on me that this was a huge problem in the industry that has to be solved, right? This was not going to get solved by generic security solution, and the consequences could be devastating, right? If you think about it, it's pretty bad already if one company suffers an SAP cybersecurity breach. If you expand that across, if you think about a coordinated attack against all the SAP or Oracle business applications of the world at the same time, like that has a pretty meaningful impact at a bit more of a macroeconomic level. And we've seen it even recently with some of the breaches in the UK related with SAP vulnerabilities that having a national impact, right? Given the criticality of these systems to the supply chain and operations. So I just felt again there was a huge problem that needed to be solved. I love cybersecurity. They was combining this with a pretty interesting domain, and I always wanted to found kind of a business and start a company. And I had the best people next to me to do it with Victor and JP. So we decided in September 2009 to start Onapsis out of Victor's bedroom in Argentina, in Buenos Aires.
that's very exciting and amazing story, Mariano. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for starting Onapsis. I feel like if you haven't done that, I don't know where we would be today. Even today, I feel like I can still relate to the same thing you're saying, your why and your aha moment. Like if you ask Cyber Guide even today to do a pen testing for SAP, I feel like they may have the same aha moment like as you had, right? There's still a little bit a black box for the cyber world. Do you
Well,
agree on that
no,
or no?
100%. It's a black box, which fortunately I think it's been changing over the last, especially the last 5 years. It's been a black box for cyber, and then the cybersecurity teams, and then you have the SAP operations teams that, again, their mindset is on how they keep the systems up and running. Or when you think about SAP security, it's all about roles and profiles or legacy SAP security. So I remember, to your point, and you just remind me of conversations we're doing trainings, and we'll talk with people. I know, like, I'm a basis administrator I've been a basis admin for 20 years. It's impossible to basically break into SAP without a user. And the good thing about this is, like, you can just show it, right? Like, you like go and execute the exploit on a development system, and you show them that someone without a user and password, just knowing the host name of the IP of SAP, they can get full control and without any audit trace. So you could see them you see the aha moment in their face, right? And in their you see the light bulb going up and like, oh my God. Right, which again is great because that then helps them realize that they need to do something to prevent this from happening. And at the time, it was hard because there were not a lot of publicly known attacks on ERP and SAP and business apps. We knew about many of them. Were called to do incident response, but of course we always keep that confidential and private. But then, like, as you started seeing apps moving to the cloud and more threats, like it's becoming now way more clear for more people that this is real, it's happening, and the bad guys know how to do this. So you really need to protect the systems, right?
I'm glad you brought about that, the training piece, which I feel like is key just for the whole mindset shift, right? So, and you also gave me idea of maybe, I don't know if you guys would be open. I would love to, whatever, I know, talking about the whole showing the exploit or taking over. If you can do it, maybe for our audience, I would just love to show that. I think we have to talk more about it. Right? This is possible, right?
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
the whole false sense of security and thinking, okay, this is all within firewall, which is changing even for SAP today, right? Maybe that's another next question.
I fully agree. And to your point, it's possible to the point that, like, people can just go now on GitHub, download an SAP exploit and use it, right? It's not that, like, you're talking about. I mean, there's definitely some very, very advanced things going on with nation states and cyber criminal groups that have kind of high sophistication, but the run-of-the-mill kind of hacktivist or attacker can just go download an exploit from GitHub and use it against an unprotected SAP system. So it's absolutely real.
Yeah, maybe 2007, because we didn't have all these AIs and the new world we are living. It was hard to find out more about if there is a bad guy who's trying to understand SAP
Right.
the way he can or she can do it today. That's just a different world we are living, right? Like, it's so easy to chat GPT now, these guys, maybe not to hack it, at least find out, I don't know, the attack vectors or whatever, right? I feel like this is helping the AI, but also kind of, I don't know, what's your take on that one, Mariano? Maybe let's cover the
Yeah.
AI.
Look, no, I think AI can be used in both. Anything like that can be used in both ways, right? Can be used to, like, it's really provides a lot of capabilities to defend. It also helps attackers in many ways. I think it's an industry misconception that the bad guys do not know SAP. I think it's a very naive thinking that it's only the goal of, like, self-preservation and trying to kind of make yourself feel good that the bad guys don't know. Like, it talks about the maturity understanding of, like, what your adversary is, right? If you're running security for a large a publicly traded organization or a large organization with critical infrastructure, mission critical systems, like, the bad guys know SAP, like, know how to kind of attack SAP and other systems to the extent that they have people on staff doing this, right? They have people with skill sets doing this. Like, I'll give you an example. We saw one attack where the threat actor exploited a vulnerability on an SAP system without a user password, right, over the internet. So they get access to SAP with admin privilege to a Java stack. And then we actually saw the attacker download and apply the SAP security node on the system. So they not only know how to hack into a vulnerable SAP system, they know how to download and they have access to the security nodes and they can apply the security nodes. So that's the level of sophistication you're talking about. Like, they know exactly what tables to go after to steal money. They know what tables to go after to get critical intellectual property or PII. They know how to deploy ransomware, how to move laterally. Bury the head in the sand. We're like, oh no, they probably don't know. SAP is so complex that they don't know how to do it. It's absolutely false. And it's been false forever, right? Because again, you think about the people that are interested in hacking into these organizations. They have the resources, they have the intent, and they have the skills. And we've seen it now, even with what happened now in 2025 with all these zero-day attacks on these breaches on manufacturers. The level of sophistication, the level of understanding they have about SAP technology is really high. This is not like we're not seeing like a log4j type of issue that happens to affect SAP systems. We're seeing purpose-built exploits and attacks against SAP technology. and now even this past weekend, Oracle, like ERP technology, that are specifically designed and built to exploit those systems and those systems only, right? And they're advanced capabilities. They're not just, oh, they found something quick and easy and they found a way in. Like it definitely invested a lot of, like hundreds of hours to develop those type of capabilities. So AI makes it a bit easier, if you will, but it's not that, like it was already bad enough, right? And if we need to adjust to that threat model.
But do you think like with the way SAP has been transforming the way SAP was in 2007, the way we know SAP is cloud with Rise, with BTP, right? So even is it that making more easier for the bad actors too? Because people don't understand, because when you say SAP, okay, maybe they not understand the application layer, but there is a other layer which is as common as like you are on hyperscalers,
Right.
which is standard. Then you have an operating system which would be standard too. Then you may have a specific database or application layer, but with BTP, with more and more SaaS based applications, and the whole cloud transformation is becoming more easier for the bad actors, even though we can't use that. They don't, and as you're saying, they already know it, but maybe it's also becoming more easier for them because that's the language they understand and speak more, right?
100%. And just, I think you're spot on. But it's also the exposure of the systems, right? We see a pretty, again, we've been doing this for 16 years, so we have a lot of intelligence and telemetry, and we see a pretty significant correlation on SAP systems going to the cloud with increase of attacks and frequency. And it's simple. Again, if you think from a threat actor perspective, they always knew that these systems were the kind of crown jewels and they had the most critical data they wanted to get after. So you've seen attacks where they go into the internal network, pivot around, and get into an SAP system. But now they don't even need to go through that effort. They don't even need to get in the internal network because the system is on the edge. The system is on the cloud. It's on BTP. It's on Rise. It's kind of internet facing. So they can, from the comfort of their locations, wherever they are, they can directly target and connect to the systems, right? So the upside is the fact that they're cloud deployed now more and more. AI, kind of all these interfaces being open for AI and automation and other use cases, it absolutely expands the attack surface and make it way easier for them to compromise an unprotected system. We did a research project once a couple of years ago. Like if you would go on like on hyperscaler of choice, let's say AWS or Azure, deploy an SAP system without the full patches, without the full configurations in less than but you don't advertise it anywhere. Like you just like spin up a box there in less than 3 hours. It gets in less than 3 hours. It gets discovered, it gets scanned, and it gets exploited. Like with SAP specific vulnerabilities, and gets compromised by threat actors in less than 3 hours. So you can just imagine what happens when you're deploying suppliers.company.com, right? And when you're actually advertising, when you have business related systems that are discoverable and reachable by legitimate business cases, they are absolutely getting targeted and exploited. So the only option you have is to really make sure that they're as secure as you can and have the ability to detect and respond quickly.
You're giving me just ideas for my podcast. I don't know if you would be open to show these things, but I would love to understand this whole Azure and AWS world. And I was thinking, like when I was saying, like maybe if I have a private cider range, will it still be? But yeah, maybe we have to go deep dive there. Mariano, if you would be open to it,
Yeah.
just because I feel like SAP is so complex to begin with, and there's so layers, right? I think even our cyber guys, because they focus on those layers, they have EDR and other solutions, and there's always acronym for something, right? But we don't have like a one view of and everything. It's just like you're doing maybe few things here, few things here, few
Right.
things here. Again, as a somebody who is responsible for securing SAP, is always seems like a lot of work. Maybe we'll go a deep dive with what you guys do with your tool, and I think everything else maybe in a future episode.
Right.
Just for the audience, I think we cover your journey. Anything anyone talk about, maybe somebody who's like 22 right now, somebody who's 22 or 23 right now, trying to start a career in cybersecurity, even like they don't even have heard about SAP. But would you have any advice for somebody like maybe younger Mariano or
Right.
something like that? Like, do you wanna cover?
Yeah. I think it's like probably anything, very basic advice, but you have to do something that you're passionate about, right? And security is a big field. Like there's a lot of things in cybersecurity. There's actually a very useful kind of map of cybersecurity domains online where you can actually see all the different categories. It's like medicine, right? It's very different to be a surgeon than a therapist, right? Or like a knee doctor. So you have to really figure out what you're passionate about in cybersecurity. Again, there are different fields. So I would encourage everyone not just to think that you go into cybersecurity, you go into, at least to begin with, a domain in cybersecurity that you're passionate about. In my case, it was all the offensive security side and the threat detection side. But then I think this space is huge, right? The ERP security, SAP security, and business app security. It's an emerging nascent space that is a really good professional and career opportunity for people. And I would also encourage people on the SAP side of the house, not the cyber side, but someone who's an SAP based or even an SAP, I would say traditional SAP security person like GRC. There is a really, really significant demand for this skill set of SAP cybersecurity professionals, as we call it. And again, resources like the book that JP and you wrote on SAP cybersecurity, like those
Yeah.
are great. And that's a
Yeah.
great asset, right? That's a great way to start and get into the field, because again, it can be a great professional career. I think for the next decade at least, there's going to be a big need for this to have the right people to support the programs for this. So I encourage everyone. I think it's a pretty good space. And I'm seeing, again, we work with a lot of the leading system integrators and partners. We work very closely with SAP as their endorsed solution for this, and I know there is a lot of demand for. They cannot fill the recs quick enough.
So I guess expanding on that, Mariano, because I do some mentorship and some other thing, and I always get all these young kids, and the same struggle I see for them, like when they say cybersecurity, maybe we're not doing good job enough as a industry, as a community. Like we don't see like a SAP cybersecurity internship role, right? Like how do you kind of make those next generations of experts in that field? Because they would be doing some internship in the cybersecurity area, but they don't know about SAP, right?
Right.
And if you're on SAP world, I may be doing internship for SAP security or SAP basis, right? So I feel like I always feel like we have to, even like the job postings I saw on LinkedIn, like I was debating like whether we should rename SAP security to SAP cybersecurity or just make like redefine SAP security to cover everything. So like how do we solve that problem? I always wonder about like what we can do about it.
My vote, I mean, look, I personally coined the term SAP cybersecurity out of necessity, because every time I was talking about SAP security, people would feel that I was talking about roles and profiles, right? So I had to come out with SAP cybersecurity as a way to explain we're talking about something different. But ultimately, I think the mission will be complete when SAP cybersecurity disappears, because I think the key point, I think what we do has to be under the umbrella of SAP security. The problem is that the market and understanding is not there today. But if I think about 5 years from now, 10 years from now, there should not be SAP cybersecurity and SAP security.
Yeah.
It will be SAP security, and it will include all the domains. It will include the roles and profiles and GRC, which is absolutely something that needs to continue, right? And it's very critical. But it would include threat and vulnerability management. It will include detection response. It will include custom code security. It will include infrastructure. So the role has to evolve and the domain has to evolve to that. And yeah, I think eventually SAP cybersecurity should die as a acronym or as a concept, and then it just becomes obvious to everyone that SAP security has to include these domains. So I don't know how to solve that. I leave that to you and a lot of smart people that have good ideas on this. But that's my prediction on how this is going. It doesn't make sense that are two different things. We're forced to have it as two different things so that people understand that the traditional is not enough.
I'm thinking about it. And I like the idea of saying SAP cybersecurity should die in saying like it should just be part of the SAP security, right? This is not a separate thing. This should be part of what you do as your roles and responsibility if you're responsible for securing SAP.
Right. I think the encouraging thing for people listening, again, it's also cybersecurity. If you're like an SAP security professional today and you're doing GRC and roles and profiles, it may sound daunting, like your cybersecurity like seems like more complex. it's not that hard, right? It's not like what we do. There are other domains in cyber that are really, really deep and technical and complicated. Like the SAP Cybersecurity flavor of that, like it's actually, I think, in the book is a great resource. There are a lot of things online. It's not that difficult, so people I think can transfer their knowledge and understanding to that field pretty. Not it's not easy, but it's not as hard as going into malware kind of reverse engineering, right? That's like a really hard change for someone in SAP security. This is actually fairly achievable with some investment on learning.
Yeah. Learning is always key. I feel like, and that's the thing I learned. Like, it's hard to say, like, cybersecurity professional to say you become SAP cybersecurity. It may be easier on our side because we live SAP day to day. Maybe learn
100%.
those cyber skills and maybe just create like a team. Like, nobody can solve this problem alone, right? So you're gonna need your infosec guys, and you become that kind of enabler, right? Like, so at least that's how I am taking it. Like, we have to take it on our, we have to bring those skill set which we don't have today.
I think it's easier for an SAP basis or an SAP like traditional security person to go into expand into SAP cyber than for a cyber person to get into the space, because just the learning core of the SAP side and all the SAPanese and acronyms and all that is harder to grasp.
And maybe that acronyms and these things probably would, as we move towards more towards SaaS and
Right.
but again we're getting now BTP now. We have all this new acronym now, right? So
Right.
they don't go what is BTP, right? And
Right.
it has all the services and all. So yeah, as you said, it's easier for on our end to learn and reskill. And so you're not gonna lose what you do today. That's still the governance. That's where it all starts. The governance, the whole NIST cybersecurity framework, right? Govern, identify,
Right.
detect, protect, respond, and recover, right? So the governance, the GRC piece is key. The identity is new parameter, as we always say in the cloud world. But we have to reskill and add those missing layers as we talk.
100%.
The other thing which I feel like has been maybe one of the reasoning of this whole siloed word we always talk is the reporting, right? Who's responsible for securing SAP? SAP sits outside, whether it's under finance or supply chain, and there is a different infosec and cyber guys, and the SAP security team don't report to the CISOs or most of the time. I don't know if you have seen or met other customer who probably have that dream setup, right? So what's your take on that, Mariano? Like, what should be the ideal, like, how do we, again, the same problem, how do we solve this? How do we make sure the SAP
Yeah.
security is doing everything? Also, how do we solve that whole reporting? Like, it's not a extra thing which is being done outside of the CISO. It's part of the enterprise cybersecurity
Yeah.
processes.
I think more and more what I'm seeing is it's exactly right. Like the companies where SAP security is part of the SAP operations team, completely disconnected. They may not even talk once in their lives with the cybersecurity team, and vice versa. Another where it's integrated. SAP security is fully in the CISO kind of purview. I think ultimately the most successful model that I see is like the CISO. It doesn't matter really where it sits. It's about the governance that you put in place. I believe for anything that is cyber related, the CISO is going to be accountable because anything like if there is a breach, there is an attack, there is a compliance violation, the CISO is going to be accountable. In many cases, the SAP operations team and the SAP security team, if it sits under that, is responsible to ensure that the systems are protected. But I think that it's all about the governance. I see very successful organizations that are the CISO is defining the governance and kind of aligning the controls with the SAP operations leader, but the operation is done entirely on the SAP side, right, of a solution like Onapsis, or vice versa. But I think the accountability is clear in my mind, and then it's very important for CISOs to and SAP operation leaders anyway, because the first call is going to go to the CISO, right? But then, like the person going to be getting the room to explain why they had an SAP security breach is going to be both the CISO and the SAP operations lead, and that's going to be a hard decision, a hard discussion if they had to explain they had a 5-year-old critical vulnerability sitting in a production system, right? That they didn't know about. So that's a tricky situation. Look, for me, it's less. The organizational structure is less important. The governance structure, the RACI, kind of the just program management. That's the most important thing. It doesn't matter where it sits. If that's not there, it won't be a successful endeavor.
No, totally agree with Mariano. Thank you. And I always, when I'm talking to JP and Jay and even like my future guests, I feel like even the time I'm trying to put for these podcasts is not enough. This is so much to talk, so much to cover. So I think I have to again request you to again maybe come back again to our podcast, because
Yeah.
I was trying to just look at my notes and all the things we thought we'll talk about it. Maybe so we talk about the somebody who's on SAP security and basis and how they can reskill and become SAP or we want to include all the modules of cybersecurity. We not call SAP cybersecurity or SAP security. But let's talk about like on the customer side. Suppose I'm a customer listening to this podcast, Mariano, and I don't have something like I didn't even think about, like, do we have to even do these things, right? So where shall I be starting? I know there's a people, process, and technology. There's three pieces, right? So at the very basic minimal, is there any recommendations or where do I start? Like, how do I
Yeah.
start? Where do I start, Mariano?
Yeah, look, I would say I'm encouraged. I just came back from the SAP Insider event in Europe, in Denmark last week. I was very encouraged to see that first the security sessions were packed, right? If you go to a security session on SAP Insider or an SAP conference 5 years ago, I always say there would be 4 people in the room and two would be realize they were in the wrong room, right? And then they would get up and leave. Now the rooms were packed, like they were back to kind of people like standing on the backs, they're like customers talking about this, partners talking about it. So it was really well, kind of good to see. And what I'm seeing more is more people talking about the how they need to solve this versus the if they need to solve this, or like, do I have the problem? So which is really encouraging. And frankly, much like with everything that's happening, especially this year with attacks, SAP cyber attacks, like it's important that people realize that. I would say the place to start is for me is like anything. You need to understand the problem before trying to solve it. So what we typically advise is to do a quick assessment, just on maybe on a few of your systems to get the facts, right? I was talking with a few people in last week. Someone actually asked a question during the session, like, hey, I feel we're doing the right thing security wise, but I don't know. What should I do? And at this day and age, you cannot feel or guess or assume. Like, you need to get the facts. And I think the easiest way to get to that is to do an assessment. The technology today that can be done in an hour or so, like very quickly without touching anything on SAP, you can get a quick assessment on what is your current security posture on the systems. And that will give you a place to start, right? Okay, maybe we're good in authorizations, but we're behind on security patches. Maybe we're not that well on security configuration, or our custom code on ABAP is really insecure, but maybe the new code on BTP is better. It's kind of a situational assessment of where you are. And then it's all about kind of creating a roadmap from there, which is what we typically do with our customers. Is like, hey, this is how you should attack this from a programmatic perspective. So you are successful with this initiative, right? You can show your leadership that you're taking the right steps, you're making progress. We can help them benchmark themselves against other companies, right? Because they're always going to get the question, how are we doing for SAP cybersecurity, which is a very broad question. We have capabilities where we can show them this is how you compare to your peers in the industry. This is how you compare with best in class. And these are the 5 things that you need to do to move from here to here, right? So that is, I think that clarity on the roadmap is critical. But absolutely, I think the first place to start is doing an assessment so you understand where you're sitting today. And again, I think it's important some people may get concerned like, oh, it's going to show that we're doing bad, right? I think that's where we see a lot of people being successful in explaining that, look, SAP Security used to be this, right? Used to be roles and authorizations. Now there's kind of all these threats that have been happening over the last few years. That basically the threat landscape has changed, right? And therefore we need to evolve how we protect SAP. And this is what we're gonna do to make sure that we do that kind of right moving forward. I think there's still a good story to tell. If you delay that discussion like a year or two, I think you start getting into like, hey, I saw about these breaches like on SAP systems in the news 2 years ago. Why are you telling me about this now? So I think it's still a window of time where people can get a good business case and justification on why they're solving this now, even if the initial results are not great, and then have a positive impact on their organizations.
So to all the customers and audience listening here, if you're not sure where you are, start with assessment, knowing where you are, do a gap assessment. Or when you say assessment, it's more like a checking against few controls, policies, baselining, right? It's not a pen testing, Mariano, right?
No, exactly. You can do a pen test, but like we typically find that a quick assessment, like a vulnerability assessment of a few systems, is enough. Some cases, some people still prefer a pen test, but I think it's enough. We can show them, in our case, what we do with customers, we show them exactly how this correlates to like vulnerabilities that have been exploited. And we also help them say, hey, you maybe have, I know, 500 security nodes that like you didn't apply. These are the 20 that are really important that you fix now, right? So it's not about fixing everything. It's impossible to fix everything, but we help prioritize based on the threat intelligence we have from research and our capabilities. And we make it digestible so they actually can make progress without being overwhelmed.
Yeah, if you try to fix everything, you're gonna fail. So
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
start with the things which matter most. Just start with critical first, and yeah.
Yeah, and look, I think then the other one is like make sure you get visibility into your security operations center, or even in whoever runs that, but you need to see what's happening in the system. Do you have malicious insiders doing things they shouldn't be doing? Do you have someone creating sample users, someone doing kind of opening clients, debug, or someone exploiting an SAP vulnerability and getting full access? So you need to have that visibility into what's actually happening, right? Because whatever you do, like you're not going to fix absolutely everything. And it's a cat and mouse game where the attacker's always going to try to find a way to get in. So you need to be able to detect and respond that.
Yeah, and today, what as with S4 transformations and with the whole end of life for the legacy, it seems like we are at a point where if you include security, if you're going on transformation by design as not afterthought, I think it's just better to do it right. So I feel like the timing itself is pretty good now. If you're going on that whole transformation journey, ask your SIE, ask your partners, ask SAP, ask somebody like Onapsis as well, and make sure security is not afterthought.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you agree with that, Mariano?
Yeah, absolutely. Not only you'll save or reduce a lot of risk, but you'll save a lot of time and money. If you don't get security right, it's a kind of unique opportunity when you're doing a transformation. If you don't get security right at that point in time and build the system securely, what absolutely is going to happen is that like a month before the go live, someone's going to do an assessment, find all these problems. You're going to have to do rework. You're going to have to push the go live date. So like actually the best way to guarantee a go live and staying on budget is doing security from day one. Otherwise, you do add also a lot of compliance risk and liabilities. So or you save a lot of time you will do doing rework after go live. So absolutely, it's a huge opportunity when you have a new transformation to get security from day one.
Thank you, Mariano. I know we have limited time, so I will ask some rapid fire questions. You can skip it or you can answer it if you like it, and then we will maybe have a final reflection and maybe also a promise to again come back to our podcast. I feel again this is not a 40 minutes. I think we need more time from Mariano, who started this whole cybersecurity for SAP for us, right, for all of us. So I guess, yeah, let me start with first question. One thing you would change about the SAP security industry or SAP industry?
I think it's understanding that if if you're protecting, if you're cybersecurity threats and you're fighting cybersecurity adversaries and threat actors, you need to have the right mindset to do that. Like I'm surprised to see. I'll give you an example that comes to mind. Like I'm surprised to see of course, there are other solutions in the market, right, that try to solve the problem the same way we try to solve the problem. But I see solutions that are designed or built like in SAP and run inside a customer. You're trying to protect SAP from vulnerabilities and attacks, and you go and use a security solution that runs inside SAP and has been developed on ABAP or SAP technologies. So for me, that is mind blowing. Honestly, we see today even like some solutions that run on Solution Manager, for instance. We see over and over again attackers that the first thing they do when they go in, they attack Solman. They can disable your security solution if it's running on Solman and then get access to all your SAP systems, right? So for me, the people deciding to protect like something as critical as SAP, and again, really applicable for other technologies as well, right? If your Oracle's solution is built on Oracle technology and runs inside Oracle, it will be the same problem. I just find that is a bit of a paradox and I think a really bad strategic decision to secure a system with the same technology with the technology that's exposed to the same vulnerabilities you're trying to protect. So that's something that I find very surprising, and it's interesting. I see more and more people realizing that that's not a good idea. So it's kind of like buying a vault and leaving the keys on the vault, right? It's like it kind of defeats the purpose. And then I think just more awareness in general, people realizing that this is not. I'm very surprised. We'll see how many people do not know still today some of the things that happened this year, like in April and in May, with like Chinese Nexus threat actors, Russian ransomware operators, like opportunistic attackers exploiting hundreds of SAP systems online. But we've seen systems that were patched after being exploited, and they still have backdoors in them, right? So like you think, okay, I apply the patch. This is a completely different game, right? These attackers were exploiting the system even before a patch existed. So they already have access. You apply the patch. It's like locking the front door. You have the kind of the thieves in the basement, right? So that mindset of understanding how security works, how some of these challenges affect and impact real life environments, I wish there would be more understanding of that faster, because it's exposing a lot of people in many cases without knowing, right, that they're exposed.
Thank you. That was good. So don't put your keys where your data is, right? So follow that whole uh, layered or whatever you call security. So this may be a more personal one. Is there any book you have read or has whatever followed which has influenced your journey, or you would recommend for somebody like me or somebody like our listener?
It's nothing to do with security or technology. It's a book that I like a lot from a human values perspective. It's called The Four Agreements. It talks a lot about some of the typical things we fall prey to as human beings on how we operate, how we think, how we interact with others, that I found pretty interesting from a foundational perspective. So nothing to do with with what we're talking about, but
No,
just
sure.
came to mind.
So I guess if you're not doing what you're doing today, what else you would be doing, Mariano? I don't know, somebody has asked this question to you before, but if you're not doing what you're doing today, what else you would have been doing?
Yeah, honestly, I thought about it. I think I have a very boring answer to you. It's like I love cybersecurity, so I'm very passionate. I'm a very low tech CEO for being a CEO. Like I don't have the latest phone. I don't follow the latest kind of tech news or gadgets. But I really love cybersecurity. So I see myself in the space for a long time. So yeah, it's I would love to be a Formula One race car driver, but I think my time may have passed for that.
Yeah.
So I'm doing the amateur version of that, but not probably get into F1 anytime soon. So I'll stick to cyber.
That's a great hook for anybody trying to be in cybersecurity, even cybersecurity for SAP, right? Even for somebody like SAP Security or SAP Basis. I feel like the SAP Basis probably has some excitement, but then you also have like, I don't know. So I was a basis guy when I started, and then I moved to security. Now I call myself SAP Cybersecurity, and maybe just covering the entire ecosystem. I'm a good learner. I don't have all the answers. That's why I need somebody like you and experts to help me make sure and do everything we should be doing. But I feel like that cyber does give you some kind of a why and purpose.
Yeah.
And it makes so much fun. Like you don't want to say, I would have been doing something else. So for me also, I feel this is my why and purpose too. So
Yeah.
yeah, if you ask me, I will be doing I will pick cybersecurity as well as you said, Mariano.
Yeah. It gives me a lot of pride. Like I take my daughter to school, kind of walking, and we run all the time into like trucks or businesses, and we see logos, we see customer logos, right? So I always talk with my daughter, like, oh, we protect that company, we protect that company, we protect that company, and it's a very engaging discussion with her. It's really good because you are actually doing something good for the world and for very important organizations that we don't realize, but we depend on in many levels, and we depend on these systems in particular on many levels. So it does have that attachment to a mission that is bigger than yourself.
Yeah, I like that proud father moment, which I do it all the time. So
Right.
I know I feel like that reason is more than enough just to do what you're doing, Mariano. So
Absolutely.
thank you for sharing that. I know we are close to our kind of a podcast, at least for this episode. We will do it again. So any last advice to CISOs, to cyber world, to SAP, or any last final thought? I know you. If I say you are the one who started cyber, like maybe if I ask like who was the one who started cyber, you would probably are humble enough. You would not say it's me, but I know we all know it's you. So it's you being that somebody who started this whole cybersecurity for SAP back in I don't know 18 years, 17 years before. So what's your final thought before we wrap up our podcast?
Yeah, look, I think I had a complete miscalculation on how quickly people would realize that this was an important problem. Right? I thought that like within 5 years, everyone would understand, and I realized that it takes way longer for these type of things. I remember like connecting the two questions, like in the early days, we started getting people being really aware about, if you think about risk and probability and impact, people understood really well or if my SAP system gets attacked or compromised or taken offline, they understood that would be really, really bad for the business. But they would always question the probability side. They would be like, hey, do the bad guys know SAP? Can they work behind the firewall? I don't see attack in the headlines. So they would, in their own kind of risk kind of evaluation, they would downplay the risk because they thought the probability was not real or was not as high than other attacks. And again, in some cases, 10 years ago, maybe that was fair, right? The people going after network devices and other and endpoints. I think it's important for people to stress test those risk models they have in their minds, especially for CISOs today, because especially what's happened over the last 10 months, it's unprecedented, right? We've seen these very advanced campaigns against SAP applications, which they're only the tip of the iceberg. We know about a lot of other things that are happening, and it is real. It is on the headlines. You see kind of businesses with significant impacts kind of leading from SAP vulnerabilities. So again, I try to think of as a practitioner. At the end of the day, you can only afford solving so many risks, right? And addressing so many risks. I think this one has bubbled up now to where it used to be the top 11 a few years ago, and you do the top 10. I think it's quickly escalated to a top 5, right? And some companies where SAP is mission critical, it should be top 1. So I would just encourage everyone to update it, kind of the risk models and threat models, think about what's happening, get an update. We're happy to do a threat briefing for them to share the latest, or with our partners. So we work very closely with many other cyber leading firms that are seeing this as well. So I just encourage everyone to get a sense. Again, you can do a quick assessment and understand where you are. And for me, it's all about, I want to make sure that people understand and know the risk, because you can only manage the risk that you know. And it may be a complete valid solution to say, we assess the risk, like we have other risks that are higher and more important, and we're going to address those and not this one. But at least you're making a sound decision, right? You're like, you can, it's impossible to manage what you don't know. So I encourage everyone to get that view and update and then make that decision. So then at least you can manage the risks knowing.
Thank you, Mariano. I think so if somebody has to reach out to you, is LinkedIn is the platform to reach out?
Yeah, probably LinkedIn. Yeah, LinkedIn is probably the easiest way. Yeah, I have Twitter and other things, but I don't use them much. So LinkedIn is probably the best channel.
We'll share your LinkedIn link and maybe more about how they can reach out if they want that.
Mariano at Onapsis.com.
Thanks. So we'll put those details in our podcast as well. Mariano, thank you again for being our guest on CyberKriya. And yeah, thank you for being the godfather of starting cybersecurity for SAP. Thank you for giving us like a whole vertical, which we are saying maybe it should die in and become like the part of the main SAP security, if that's our goal, right? But thank you for what you do, Mariano, and I hope to get you again on our podcast, maybe together with the dream team, and we talk more about how what happened and maybe some inside stories and fun stories.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to go. Thanks again for having me, and again, kudos to you for all the great work you're doing. I think again, this is the type of thing we need for people to get an understanding. And again, there's also, as we discussed before, a great career opportunity for many. So I think it's great what you're doing and keeping evangelizing. I know you're already the work you do on your company to protect them and protect the house. I think what you're doing with this is also great to help many people. So happy to be part of it.
Yeah, this is more maybe when we become like 70, 80, if you watch these videos. I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, I think you're welcome, Mariano. Again, thank you. Thank you for inspiring. Thank you for doing whatever you do. And yeah, I know all these conferences. We'll talk about more about conferences and all the smiles and the community picture and things we're trying to do with Jay and Gabriel, and I think everybody. Like we want everybody to join. It's not just like we need somebody like you, and then we need SAP, we need customers, we need even auditors. So we have our small tribe, which you call a SAP Cybersecurity Community tribe. But yeah, thank you for being the pole star of that tribe. So
my pleasure, and thanks again for having me. So I'll see you next time.
Yeah, I think I think you have to promise we have to do it again. I think
we'll do it.
to talk. Yeah, thank you, Mariano.